Be ready. 10 seconds to go. Start. Now, generally speaking, this political aspect of the Asian struggle is drawing to its natural and inevitable culmination. But at the same time, the economic aspect continues and is bound up with all manner of economic problems affecting the world. From the Asian point of view, it has become essentially a matter of extreme urgency to deal with these problems. From the world point of view, it is equally urgent, really, because unless these problems are dealt with in Asia, they affect other parts of the world. I have no doubt that you, ladies and gentlemen, who are members of this commission, realize the importance of what I have said and will make it clear to the United Nations that any attempt to pay inadequate attention to Asian problems is likely to defeat the end which the United Nations has in view. In Asia, many historical forces have been at work for many years past, and many things have happened which are good, and many things which are not so good, as always happens when impersonal historical forces are in action. They are still in action. We try to mold them a little, to divert them here and there, but essentially they will carry on till they fulfill their purpose and their historical destiny. That historical destiny can only be one of complete political and economic freedom within some kind of world framework. In Asia and the rest of the world, there are various systems at work, political and economic, in different countries. Obviously, it will not be possible to cooperate easily unless we proceed on the basis of not interfering with any system, political or economic, in any country, leaving it to that country to develop as it chooses within the larger sphere of world cooperation. You can look upon the problems of Asia from the long term and the short term point of view. The short term problems demand immediate attention because of the urgency of solving some great difficulties. There is, for instance, the aspect of food. It is an extraordinary state of affairs that in a country like India or similar predominantly agricultural countries, we should lack food or that we should not have a sufficiency in food. There is something obviously wrong if that kind of thing happens. I have no doubt in my mind that India, for its part, can and we will produce enough food for itself. Tomorrow will be the 31st anniversary of our independence. On the eve of this auspicious occasion, I greet you, my fellow citizens, at home and abroad, and offer you my good wishes. Much has happened in the last 1 year. The government has done its best to restore the rule of law and the liberties of our people. I want to speak to you tonight not only of our achievements and aspirations but also the unfulfilled tasks and the tormenting differences casting their ominous shadows on your national life. A country of India's dimensions, with its missed opportunities and mounting challenges, remains a nation in constant evolution despite its impressive strides in many spheres. It has been going through an endless self examining process, trying to rediscover itself, shed the accumulated hangovers of the past, and keep pace with the complexities and compulsions of the present times. The tempo of this activity can be sustained only through stability, which is the very basis of survival. The country stands today at the critical crossroads of history, and any false turn could prove ruinous for the nation. In a democracy, there is always place for honest differences. The inherent right of dissent must not, however, be carried to the point of obstructing the democratic processes, blocking the proceedings of legislatures, carrying controversies to the streets, or indulging in the politics of denunciation and manipulation. The country's political system can function only within the framework of the accepted norms based on self restraint and readiness to place public welfare above narrow party or personal interests. A nation torn as under by bitter discord can hardly hold its place or make any progress. There is need for an ennobling vision of a resurgent India imbued with a crusading spirit and an exhilarating sense of participation in a common effort. No nation can face the future and move forward without a robust faith in itself and its people. The real crusade today is against poverty. We must end the widening disparities between the rich and the poor and the creation of islands of privilege. We cannot afford to be complacent in such a situation, have to forge ahead with well conceived, need oriented, and strictly time bound programs for ensuring socio economic justice for all. The future must hold out a promise for a better life for the economically weaker and vulnerable sections of our society. Stop